This is comedian Daryl Lennox making his debut on Mr. Media. Fantastic man, a medium pleasing voice to the ear, but still a nice guy. And here's a tip. You can try to get Mr. Media to do a sex tape and just sell the audio, and it might work. It probably won't. Thanks for watching Mr. Media.
Today on Mr. Media, I'll talk to comedian Brad Sherwood, one of the co-hosts of the funny and informative new web TV investigative series, This versus That. Also joining us, the show's creator and executive producer, John Hotchkiss. Stick around. If the combination of news and humor on Comedy Central's The Daily Show, or even BBC America's Top Gear, is your idea of a good time, you really should check out This versus That. So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is a Mr. Media interview, brought to you by Amazon.com, Audible.com, and 1-800-DIAL-DJs. Please stop by the website, MrMedia.com, click on our advertisers, support the show. And remember, there's more than 1,000 interviews available at MrMedia.com. We've been doing this since February 2007. Hope you'll find something you like. And thanks for listening. Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience of indecisive SOBs who can't choose between folding chairs or couches with exposed springs because they don't know which is more likely to hurt their butts in the long run. In the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. Why is anything done in the manner to which we've become accustomed? For example, why do most airlines board passengers from the front to the back, or even the back to the front, whereas the most consistently profitable airline doesn't assign seats and loads faster? Why is coffee most often served in styrofoam cups when there's so many other options? Why do a growing number of TV viewers retain news and information delivered with humor better than just a dry recitation of the facts? On This versus That, a new web-only TV series aimed pretty much at men, the three co-hosts, friends Brad Sherwood, Mark DeCarlo, and Chris Tallman, investigate science, urban legends, and a bit of nonsense, always with a sense of humor and an eye toward the absurd. Some of the issues recently on their minds? Which flotation device is more likely to save your life if you survive a plane crash in the water? Life vest versus seat cushion. Which pet is smarter, dog or cat? Dog. And what's the best way to get through traffic? Stay in your lane or weave in and out? The show was created by John Hotchkiss, one of the original writers on Bill Maher's Politically Incorrect and a former showrunner for Showtime's long-running Penn and Teller Bullshit. You can sample the show for free or watch all 6 hour-long HD episodes of This versus That for $5.49 at the website thisversusthat.com. That's thisvsthat.com. Brad Sherwood and John Hotchkiss.
This versus that show.com.
Show?
Sorry.
Did I get it wrong? I apologize.
Yeah, this versus that. No, it's okay. It's the guy who owned thisversusthat.com wanted $50,000, and I said I offered him $5,000 one day, and I said I'll never call you again unless. And he said I want $50,000, and I told him no, and so we're at thisversusthatshow.com.
I deeply apologize. I actually that
Nope.
got by me. I'm sorry about that. We'll fix it as we go.
No, it's fine.
All right. Guys, and by the way, folks, this is Brad on the left and John on the right. And John, am I wrong in thinking that the show is somewhat akin to televising the world's longest-running bar arguments? But sometimes you get to go on like location.
Yes, I mean, look, the show. I have always, just forget what I do for a living. I've always been interested in sort of how the world works. How people sort of navigate through the world, and then how we interact with systems and machines. And I just have always been interested in just whatever the truth is, whether it's, I'm not interested so much in the politics of the answer. In fact, I don't care at all. I just want to know if a guy says to me, if you buy this if you buy this Toyota Prius, you're going to save money and you're going to save gas and you're going to help save the environment. I'm a skeptical Jewish boy from Long Island, and so my instinct is to not believe him, right? But I don't know why I don't believe him, other than that I'm skeptical, right? And so I wish I knew how things worked. And so, yes, it's essentially I'm interested in how things work, and fortunately I have very nice, kind, and decent friends who were helped to bring that sort of idea to life.
And does it? This is the kind of thing that guys sit around and argue about all the time, right? All these kind of arguments.
I think that there's a lot of it that is stuff like that, but there's also a big part of the show, for me at least, is it's not things that are based on people's intuition or their gut, right? Like, I think Ali was better than I think this guy was better, right? It's not about people's opinions. It's about just what are the facts, just unbiased, just I want information, and if you do this, this, and this is what will happen. If you do this, this, and this is what will happen. And I think that there's a lot of situations that we all bump up against in our life where maybe there's 2 or 3 options that you could choose from in any given situation. And I think that there's probably 1 or 2 of them that we reflexively kind of go to without knowing whether or not it's really the thing that is optimal for us. Just as an example, it's right. July 4th is coming up. People are barbecuing, right? And so if you were thinking about getting a new barbecue for your backyard, do you want one with propane or one with natural gas? I think people reflexively think they're the same. Well, it turns out one of them is 2.5 times hotter than the other, and that if you want to make charred grilled steaks, one of those fuels is going to be empirically better than the other one. And so I think we did a funny bit in the show where Brad does a hilarious bit of business about people's sort of notions about propane and natural gas. Propane comes in a tank, and it's an annoying thing. You have to pick it up down by the methadone clinic, right? And if you run out of propane, the whole barbecue is ruined. Natural gas, well, it's easy. It comes out of my house. They just hook up a pipe, and now I'm cooking, right? So if you have the natural gas hookup, I think people don't even think about, well, should I get the other thing? And, well, we did an experiment where we blew up giant cans of baked beans and to demonstrate which of those 2 fuels is in fact hotter.
John, let me ask you this, and Brad, I got a question for you in a second, but one more question for John. How does this Star Price, who I think was an EP on Penn and Teller Bullshit, was one of the first guests on Mr. Media, I don't know, 2007, 2008, it's been a while. And it was Penn and Teller. It was a really interesting show. There was a lot of investigation of things that people would be skeptical of. There were scams. Yep. And how does this differ from that? Stylistically, it seems similar, but the material is different, right?
Yes, that's exactly correct. Look, I had a fantastic experience running the Penn and Teller series. I started off in the first year as a writer, then as the supervising producer, and then in the showrunner for seasons 4 and 5. Sorry, it's such a long time ago, right? And so a lot of the sort of techniques of making a documentary, right, I learned while working on that program. Now that show, though, is very biased. It's not that it's untrue. It's that we were taking a point of view and telling you the facts that supported that point of view. Right, that's a thing. That's a show about things that are bigger. Things that are. We did shows about the death penalty. We did shows about whether or not the Boy Scouts was a bigoted organization or not, or about what's really a family. Right, I think, and so those are sort of bigger ideas kind of shows, and these are the things on This Versus That are about the things that we literally bump into when we open the front door, when we get in our car, when we drive, as we commute to work, as we go outside into the backyard. And it's about things that literally you can reach out. The thing I tell people is it's the science within arm's reach. Like literally things that you bump into every day. And that's, for me, what the show is about.
Right. And Brad, tell me, so you're on a show here that's investigative, it's got a lot of facts. On the surface, when it's described a certain way, it doesn't sound like it's going to be fall down funny. But what I'm wondering is, you're a comedian, you're a guy who's fast on his feet. When do you and Mark and Chris get involved, and how much is off the cuff and how much is scripted for you?
Well, most of what we say is pretty much off the cuff. John generally would sort of give us the gist of some points that need to be covered during what we're saying, because you have a sort of a responsibility to report the science and the findings of the science as we do these experiments. But for the most part, we're kind of like a bunch of feral cats playing with these experiments, and then he runs in every once in a while and just reminds us that what the outcome needs to touch upon scientifically, so that it maintains the credibility of actually being a scientific experiment.
Is it difficult to make fun, or to be funny in the situation? I don't mean to make fun, but to be funny in the situation, or does it lend itself to being funny?
Well, I think the three of us have decades of experience being funny in any and all situations, and I think that's part of why John wanted us for this. Is he wanted it to be funny. He wanted to take these not crazy, politically charged, hot button topics. These are simple, fun little things, like what's a better flotation device? What's a better barbecue cooking source? These are silly, fun things, and why not make them more fun? This is not hard-edged news that we are dissecting here, and so he wants it to be fun. Much like many other science shows, the fun is in the experimentation and in the results, but taken from not a dry scientific perspective.
Guys, I just thought of another show that I think compares fairly to what you're doing in terms of style. This other show probably is not so much on the substance, but I'm reminded of the Man Show, where they would do things. They would do maybe experiments from time to time. But they also, there were always women were involved. There was always skimpily clad, and things always came back to it was a guy thing. Guys would hang out. It'd be funny. Well, and by the way, maybe occasionally a girl in a bikini might just happen into the shot.
So I would say that there's only one episode where I, at the very beginning, thought, maybe I'm going to try a different sort of tone with the show, but I would say in the vast preponderance of instances, 95% of the show is a show that you could watch as families, that there isn't any inappropriate language. There's no nudity in the show, right? It's a show that takes science very seriously, but that also is an entertainment show. And what Brad and Chris and Mark bring to it are the skills of seasoned entertainers. I mean, Brad tours the country and has for years and years and years performing to sold-out theaters and arenas across the country, where if you sit in the audience, you'll see grandparents, moms and dads, and kids in the audience. And that's really the same kind of thing there isn't anything in this show that I wouldn't let my 13-year-old daughter or my 8-year-old daughter watch. And other than there might be one or two times where we left inappropriate language in the show. I think that a comparison to the Man Show, I think, is only in the sense that we're both television shows, right? I think that show was much more, and by the way, I don't think it was much more misogynistic. I don't think that that's definitely not our intention in the show. And I might reflexively there might be times where you might think that, but overall, I would say that the show is appropriate for men and women. The show is appropriate for people who are, the thing I tell people is, it's a show for adults. People who get up in the morning and do something that adults do. Do they go to work? Are they a stay-at-home parent? Are they somebody who thinks about how the world works? And I think that's who our audience is, and that fits people who are, I don't know if I think 18 and 19-year-olds would like the show. 18 and 19-year-olds love Brad's show that he tours, with Colin Mockery, right? And so they would love that, even if they haven't seen his previous work on Who's Line. Mm-hmm. So, again, I think that our show is much more inclusive to everyone, and that Brad especially knows. I mean, he can speak more to this, but about performing in a way that is inclusive, so that so that people go, "Oh, I'm in on it," not the butt of it. And that's a thing that we learned a long time ago. Brad hosted a pilot that I did for the Game Show Network, and we understood very clearly from day one that what you want is for people to feel included and not the butt of. And I would disagree with the premise that it's so. Anyway.
And Brad, have there been episodes where the science worked or the experiments worked, but you and Mark and Chris just couldn't make it funny enough to work with? Did maybe you had to move on?
Oh, that's never happened to us. No, it's everything that John does and the science that would always be the weak link in our show. The hosting is always top notch and as funny as can be. It's just the reality of making television that truly waters down the genius comedy that we're doing.
John, you want to rebut that?
I have nothing to look. The thing that I always said look, the truth is that Brad is a friend, and Mark is a friend, and Chris is my friend. And I never wanted the show to be, let's make the best version of whatever it was that I thought up. I wanted to make the best version of the show. And the hosts are terrific at taking some germ of an idea that I had that was probably bad and turning it into something that is, quite frankly, elegant and hilarious, and also finishes with making whatever it was the point that we were, trying to demonstrate in any particular experiment. Brad has, years and years and years and years of experience doing improv and being able to make funny out of, quite frankly, any kind of situation. And Chris Tallman and Mark DeCarlo, they all have the same kind of training. And, watching them work together was always the best part of the job. It's always the best part of the job for me.
Brad, most comedians these days, it seems like an ever-growing number of them, have their own podcasts to help kind of expand their brand, their name, that kind of thing. Is this sort of a variation on that for you, or am I going to find in a minute that you're doing a podcast as well?
No, I'm not doing a podcast. I think that what John is doing is trying to find new outlets and markets that are going beyond the traditional run it up the pipe and kiss butt to the network programming people. And when you knock on those doors, if those doors don't swing immediately open, instead of just declaring the show dead, you can find other avenues, some of which are what John is doing now. Because I think the whole paradigm of TV and really using TV is limiting it in its description. But creating shows and content is different now. Podcasts themselves are an example that it's not just about radio. You can have an entire career as a person discussing topics without actually being on terrestrial radio. Mm-hmm. Sirius is another example of how new niches come along all the time. What we're doing here on Skype and then going through your outlet is different than what existed 15, 20 years ago. There are YouTube sensations that have somehow generated a career off of putting their own videos just on the internet. So it is always now forever going to be the shifting sands of entertainment, and the more restrictive one media outlet becomes, then the groundswell will seep through the cracks and build an entirely new kingdom somewhere else.
So go ahead, John, I'm sorry.
Do you mind if I add one thing to that?
Sure.
And this is the thing that for me has been the sort of single most important for me personally as a sort of driving force in entertainment, which is this, is that it used to be that if you wanted to have a television show, you had to be in business with one of the television networks because they had access to satellites and cable companies. right? And as content creators, as performers, quite frankly, I don't own a satellite. And although Brad has one, he wasn't lending it to me, right? And so there was no way for me to distribute any content that I had created in any reasonable way, right? However, now, thanks to the internet, I can make a TV show in my garage, which is precisely what I have done. And I can distribute it around the world from my garage. And I no longer need to have the television networks tell me what it is that makes a good television show. I can let the market decide whether or not people will like a thing or not. And that this gives us an opportunity to make something that isn't homogenized, that isn't watered down, that maybe does appeal to I'm not saying it does, but it opens up the opportunity for there to be, for programming to appeal to a niche audience. The broadcast networks, by very dint of their existence, are making things broad. They are trying to broadcast it to millions and millions of people. A program like ours, if it appealed to 100,000 people, we would be in business for the rest of our lives, right? And I think the best analogy that I can think of that describes this scenario is this: that when creative people go about the business of doing whatever it is that they do that's creative, Brad's TV work, Brad's stage work, I think my TV shows, people, what they want is to make Rocky Road ice cream. They want something that has chocolate in it. They want something that has chunks of chocolate. They want there to be marshmallows and peanuts, unless they have a peanut allergy, in which case they probably don't, right? And then I think that through the development process, though, when you're in business with the cable networks or the TV networks, is they start to pull out the chocolate chunks, and then they pull out the marshmallows, and then they pull out the chocolate fudge and the caramel swirl, right? And then all you're left with is chocolate ice cream. And believe me, the minute they figure out a way to get the chocolate out, they will be very happy to give everyone vanilla. And because they know that that will be the flavor that will be the least offensive flavor to the broadest number of people, right? And I think that what we're doing is making Rocky Road ice cream.
All right.
And that there's an opportunity to make Rocky Road, and not just me. But lots of television creators and lots of performers can do it. Louis C.K., right? He told me, what's the difference at the end of the day if he has a comedy special and Comedy Central is doing it, or if he is doing it, right? Comedy Central is in 10 zillion homes, right? But Louis goes, if I go on Letterman and Leno, and I go on a half a dozen podcasts and a couple of other programs, I can let enough people know. Mm-hmm. And instead of some big media corporation taking all the money, well, Louis can take all the money.
All right. Well, guys, I have one more question for you, each of you. Just kind of curious, how will you... maybe Brad, you go first with this. How will you determine if this has been successful for you? You probably have different measures, each of you, what you're looking to get out of it. Brad, how about you first?
Well, there's already been a measure of success because we've done 6 shows, and I think I can speak for myself and the other host boys, is that we enjoy the process. We enjoy the whole process of making a TV show, as long as there's some shade. On days that we didn't have an umbrella, it was pretty tough because we were all very light-skinned. Well, maybe Mark. Mark is swarthy. But, it's kind of... we like hosting things. We like... I have a scientific sort of inquisitive mind, so I like that aspect of it as well. And, I've been doing this in various incarnations, some type of a hosting for my whole career. Obviously, when you get a huge amount of money to do a show, so like you're hosting, the Deal or No Deal, sure, that's sort of the apex of a hosting gig. That's the one that you buy a house off of. But, I think all of us got into this business because we liked making Rocky Road ice cream, to steal his analogy. And, we'd be making it in some form or another, whether we were getting rich off of it or not. So, what is the barometer of success at this point? I feel fortunate that I've been out here since I kind of drove out here after college and have managed to, all but the first year that I was out here, pay my bills completely off of doing jobs as an actor and a host and a performer. So to me, that's my mark of success.
Okay. John?
Look, I make the television show, and I'm not exaggerating, right? It's made in my garage, right? And I swear, right? And the avids to edit the video are in my garage. The laptop that we use to upload it to the server at the website it's from my garage, right? So out of my garage, it's already been distributed in about a dozen territories internationally. Right? It's been played all over Europe, Australia, Japan, Israel. And so, if you ask, that's one barometer of success. The second barometer of success is the free clips on YouTube have been seen by 100,000 people. Okay? And I got to think that out of my garage, right, I got 100,000 people so far, and that's just in 3 months to sample the media, right? The traffic at our website tripled from the time that we went online with the 6 1-hour special with the 6 1-hour episodes, and the first month was 10,000. In the second month, it was 30,000, right? And so we started a blog a month ago. We had 10,000 unique visitors in the first month, and so I think that I've already demonstrated a level of success that is beyond that with which one might have predicted early on. And so, but I won't be satisfied until we make enough to to make many more episodes. And I demonstrate to people the very real ability of content creators to genuinely make things on their own outside of this traditional studio system that will allow them to fulfill whatever creative instinct that they have. And that if a thing's a success, it's because they had some unique vision that the rest of the audience enjoyed. And if it was bad, well, then they'll have learned that people don't like, I don't know, whatever the bad thing was that they put out. But that that content creators can make their own kinds of programming and get it out to the audience and be paid for their work, right? And to do it in a more fulfilling way, and not to be not to be the guys with the money say, I don't know, we don't like Rocky Road. We think people should have vanilla. And well, now suddenly you have to now make vanilla ice cream because the guy who's paying for it says, we did a study and it turns out Americans like vanilla ice cream. And so I would really like for there to be an opportunity, because programming will be better. It won't be homogenized. It won't be watered down. It won't be dumbed down. It might be aimed at a smaller audience, but that's okay. We're not in the broadcast business. We can play to a niche audience. And I think that is good for the audience and also good for people who make things creatively.
All right. Well, folks, listen, you can watch all 6 hour-long HD episodes of This Versus That for $5.49. That's $5.49 at the website thisversusThatShow.com. And again, it's this and then vs.thatshow.com. John, there's a Twitter and a Facebook account, I think, for the show?
Yes. We're on facebook.com/thisversusThatShow. Also, go to bradandcolin.com. Brad, do I have that right?
ColinandBradShow.com.
ColinandBradShow.com. COLIN and BRAD show.com. They're touring all over the country, and you can see them in a theater near you. You can see This Versus That. Facebook.com/thisversusThatShow, and on Twitter at thisversusThatShow.
All right. And Brad,
follow us.
Brad, I was going to ask you the same thing. Are you on Facebook or Twitter yourself?
Yes, I have a Facebook. They can just search for Brad Sherwood, and my fan page is there. And on Twitter, I am at the Brad Sherwood.
At the Brad Sherwood. Very good. Well, guys, it was really interesting. People should really check out the show. It's a lot of fun. It's very entertaining, without a doubt. And John Hotchkiss, Brad Sherwood, thank you so much for joining us today on Mr. Media.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
You can see and hear almost 1,000 Mr. Media interviews by visiting our main site, mrmedia.com, mrmedia.com, or check out the more than 200 video interviews on the Mr. Media radio site on YouTube. And I'd sure appreciate if you'd show some love for Mr. Media's advertisers, including Stitcher. Apple named Stitcher a top 5 news app of 2011. It's a free mobile app for your smartphone or tablet that lets you listen to your favorite shows and discover the best of news, entertainment, and sports on demand. You can listen whenever you want to more than 5,000 shows, get customized recommendations, and discover what your friends are listening to. My own list of Stitcher favorites is pretty eclectic. I start my day with an hour of MSNBC's Morning Joe with Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. Then it's the latest 2-minute update from the Onion News Network. After that, I'll listen to WTF with Mark Maron, Here's the Thing with Alec Baldwin, HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, and excerpts from E's Chelsea Lately and The Soup with Joel McHale. Also in regular rotation on my Stitcher playlist, the BS Report with ESPN's Bill Simmons, the TechCrunch headlines, and the Don Geronimo Show. The latest episodes of each show, whether originating from broadcasts, cable TV, radio syndication, or podcasts, are continuously updated. Stitcher is a free app for your iPhone, iPad, Kindle, Fire, BlackBerry, Droid, and more. And show your support of Mr. Media by getting, did I mention it's free? The app at stitcher.com/Mr. Media. That's stitcher.com/MR Media. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. We're also supported by Audible. Check out Audible's 30-day trial membership and download the audiobook version of the book everyone's been talking about, 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James. Sign up for your free trial today at audible.com/radio. Again, audibletrial.com/radio. And finally, if you need a disc jockey for a wedding, bar mitzvah, corporate event, or just a big old party, please consider calling 1-800-DIAL-DJs, the party authority for all your party entertainment needs. You can call 1-800-DIAL-DJs or go to their website, 1-800-DIAL-DJs.com, and tell them Mr. Media sent you. And thanks for listening.
Wonder what makes us, the Smurfs, so happy? The forest, of course! This is where we, along with the beautiful forest creatures, make our home with beautiful plant life, clean water, and endless adventures. It's a place to celebrate! So discover the forest with your family today. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
Today's episode of Mr. Media Interviews is brought to you by GoDaddy.com. You know GoDaddy.com from their wild and sexy commercials, but isn't it time you actually test drove their web hosting and domain registration services yourself? For a limited time, Mr. Media listeners can save 10% on the already low price of web hosting services at GoDaddy.com by entering the promo code POD4 at checkout. Again, that's 10% off web hosting when you go to GoDaddy.com and enter the promo code POD4, that's P-O-D, the number 4, at checkout.